There seems to be a bit of a pattern here this morning, a little power couple pattern. I should have brought someone up here with me just to stay in the pattern. I am part of a power couple myself. You know, I don't know that I will ever get out of my head Lorraine and Ray dancing, ever. And that's a compliment. I just found myself just in such sweet joy. That's what it felt, sweet joy, truly, right? And then there's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. There's Rachel and her beautiful story and presence, and then there's you two. Oh my goodness. My heart there's no way it stays closed through something like today. So I want you to think about that. When it's dark enough, you can see the stars. Now, I put the emphasis on can see. You don't have to. You can ignore it. You can be distracted by other things, whatever that is. You can see the stars. In fact, the stars are always present, right? They really are. We in our world, having grown up thinking that we're the center of the universe and that it only shows up when I see it, what's true about us is we show up as we see it. The World Cup in soccer began in 1998. Iceland, the tiniest country, tried to qualify for the World Cup with a team in 2008 and failed over and over until finally in 2011, they finally qualified. Now, I'm not a big soccer fan. I find this story interesting, and the only time I do watch soccer is when the World Cup is on, because I'm so amazed at teams and how I'm intrigued by teams and how they show up and how they're able to get together, come together. Iceland's national men's soccer team qualified every year after that, and in 2018, they qualified. Not only qualified, they made it to the finals. They are the smallest country in the World Cup. There are no superstars on that team. None. And there's been amazement in the sporting world, specifically soccer world, as how were they able to accomplish that. In 2016, they made their first quarterfinal. They beat England, the country that is 150 times their size in population, one of the most amazing teams in the world. Then they beat Croatia, another team that is truly one of the most amazing soccer teams. And they qualified for the final. They tied at the final with Argentina, 1-1. What's interesting about the team is the players and the coaches alike are part-time because they work full-time jobs to support their family. What was the key to their success? And I'm always intrigued by this. How is it that people are able to rise above when seemingly impossible odds? This is how they did it. This is what was key to their success. They did not compare themselves to others. They did their deal. They found their purpose by focusing on their soul, their identity. Their identity not necessarily being anything but what they brought as a country that was common amongst anyone that lives in Iceland. They focused on that. They nurtured it. They asked themselves, where do we come from? What are we here to do? What is different about us? And then they owned that identity, which was an underdog identity for the purpose in which they showed up. They also did one other thing that I thought was so interesting. They focused on what's called set pieces. I have no idea what that is. So I read more. Set pieces in soccer is any action that returns the ball to open, neutral play. The reset. The power in the reset. Icelanders are good at work and discipline, and they worked on what they were good at. They did not try to be the best goalie, or they did not try to be the best kicker. They focused on how the ball was put into play, and they took advantage of those moments, because that's not what soccer teams focus on. In fact, that's quite routine in the soccer world. Again, I'm not a soccer player. Could you put up our slides, my friends in the back? There's a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Gonzalez who did a study on specifically how do people survive in what seems impossible conditions. Why is it in a plane crash a 15-year-old girl walks out but all the adults perish? Why is it that some people survive and some don't? And he came down to this. After years of study, it had nothing to do with training. It had nothing to do with the right tools or the right equipment. It came down to this. The maddening thing for someone with a Western scientific turn of mind is that it's not what's in your pack that separates the quick from the dead. It's not even what's in your mind. Corny as it sounds, it's what's in your heart. So what's in your heart? What's in our heart is what we believe about ourselves, what we believe we came here not to be in vocation, but what we came here to be and how we are that. So often we think it's about our vocation, something I do for my work. It has nothing to do with that. There are many ways that I can be me, and it doesn't have to be a minister. It's just the vehicle that I happen to choose and commit to for the vehicle that I'm here to be now in purpose, which allows me to exact my purpose, which is how I came here to be. Knowing who we are in the context of something bigger is our purpose. The big reset. I'm going to go back to this, which is how can we open to this reset? We are in the middle of a reset. Now, for those of you that go on the internet and watch that whole The Big Reset, I want you to take that, if that's something you've seen, and let's put that over here. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or anything like that. What I'm talking about is the liminal space in which we're not that or this, which we are not back in the past or we're not in the future. We are in this moment, and something is unfolding that is not clear. That's not just happening for Seal Beach and Namaste. It's happening for me. It's happening for you. It's happening for everyone. What am I here to do and be? What's next? You might even feel, I don't know what I'm here to be. I don't know what I'm here to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to be here. We're looking for that sort of, sometimes that magic, oh, I'm here to be, I don't know, give me an idea of what you think you might be here to do. A what? A painter. A giver. A teacher. A peacemaker. A lover. A prayer warrior. All of those are great ideas. But what's underneath it is what's important, which is how do I be that? You can choose anything. How do I be that? And the opportunity in this reset is to look at that. We keep talking about liminal space, and we're in this landscape, and honestly, studies have been conducted that looks at the last 30 years, change has happened so fast that oftentimes we're not even aware of it. And I'm sure some of us are saying, whoa, slow down, slow it down, slow it down. There is some change that isn't going to slow down. It's just going to keep coming. And what they're expecting is it's coming faster and faster and faster. And that's not because there's something out there that we're not part of. It's happening faster and faster because we are. We are that consciousness. The way to address this change in the past would have been minor tweaks, minor changes to our strategy, minor changes to our vision and mission. It's not it anymore. We're having to make deep and big change. For a lot of us in the room, you know who you are. I'm speaking to me too. Change produces quite a bit of feeling, doesn't it? Quite a bit of reaction sometimes, right? The feelings that sometimes we might have through something like this, whereas we're having an experience where, honestly, I believe that there's something happening and I'm sort of being pulled by it, but I'm dragging all my stuff with me too. So with that, what feelings have we had and do have in this liminal space, this not this, but not that? Awkward? How many of you feel awkward? Yeah. I felt awkward getting dressed this morning. Ill at ease? Self-conscious. What if I don't know the answer? I'm not good enough. Or whatever it is we're feeling. Agitation. Good Lord, every day is agitation. Depression, rumination. We feel alone. We may even feel paralyzed a little bit. We may withdraw. How do we respond because of those feelings? We may protect. We may fight. We may retreat. We may leave. We may be a space holder. There's different ways that we show up. And a space holder also can be someone that anchors in both, could be anchoring in, so we have to pay attention. Am I anchoring in what was, what I'm comfortable with, or is being a space holder being open? It's important that how we are in this experience that we become more and more conscious. You didn't hear me say be conscious. Be more and more conscious because it's the journey. So I am not, I don't watch a lot of sports. I watch particular sports, and sports I'm interested in, but there's always something underneath it. Back in February, the end of February, I went to a softball tournament in Palm Springs. I am not a softball player. I have no interest in the past of ever watching softball. My wife is an NCAA softball player. She rocks the Casbah, let's just say that. When I was there, I felt something. I'm watching the top teams in the country of women play, and I'm watching these young women, and I am blown away. I am blown away by what I'm seeing in women's sports, in which women are showing up in ways that I didn't see when I was younger, when I was playing sports in college and high school. Patty Gasso is the Oklahoma University softball coach. She is the most winning sports coach of any sport in the country. They have a record as of yesterday of 59-1. That, just saying that, I'm like intrigued, right? How do they do this? I watch them, and I'm watching them play, and I'm watching them being joyful and present and just not afraid of anything. They do not seem to play their opponent. They play their game. Patty Gasso, who's been a coach at OU for almost 30 years, I think it's 29 years, she's had to adapt her coaching style. I'm very interested in how she's able to just literally, they get on the field and there is nobody that can play their level of play in the country. She said this: "The truth is, I wasn't revolutionary 8 years ago." She was very much somebody who devoured wins and choked down losses. Her identity as a coach was anchored into whichever side the box score ledger landed on that day. At one time was really living in that space, and it was miserable. She was living for the result. You get what I'm putting down? I think that's, are you picking up what I'm putting down, right? She said, when I got here, I wasn't a player's coach. I pushed and pushed and pushed. I was a discipline coach. I didn't let players get away with a lot of things, and I just ran a very tight ship. And that worked up until 2009. They won the World Series for NCAA Division I colleges. She had the dream team. And the next year, they lost horribly in season. And she's like, I have the best players in her mind. How did we lose? Same team. Same team. She said, I didn't change my leadership style. I adapted my leadership style. The generations that were coming in at that time, as well as what young people were expecting, wasn't working. She could do it one season, but there was no sustainability of that. So what we focus on, if we're creating something, is the most important thing about creating something new. If we focus on the destiny, we will lose what's most important, which is the journey. It's the process. Patty Gasso hired a coach to help her look at what was needed at that time and how could she take her current self, not change who she is, but take it and adapt it. And he helped her focus on not the results, not the scoreboard, to be present in the moment, to be caring, and to focus on process. Process. I find that so intriguing because in my career, prior to being a minister, it was all about the destiny. It was all about the result, all about the goal. So often, as we're moving along, if we focus on the goal, guess what happens when we fall on our way to the goal? We could give up. Why would we give up? Because we failed. Because we see the goal, we see that we failed, and therefore, how am I going to get to the goal? What would happen if instead of focusing on the goal, I focused on where I'm at in this moment? What would happen if I fail and I focused on the moment? I might get up with a sense of, it's not about the goal. It's about this present moment. The best way to be great is to get good at where we're at in the current moment, in the current level we're at. Because then when we try and fail, we're not failing because of the destiny, we're failing with intent to try and to risk, because failing really isn't about trying, it's about not trying. It's about falling down and not getting up. What gets us to reset is the inner voice and what we focus on. It can either build us up or it can take us down. That inner voice, just imagine for just a moment when I say this. I want you to think about your inner voice right now. Our inner voice is our personal coach. Just sit with that for just a moment. Yeah, that's just kind of disturbing, right? Fire that coach, right? But the coach is doing exactly what we're allowing it to do. If we're focused on the goal, the coach is reinforcing the goal. If we're focused on failing, the coach is reinforcing failing. If we're focusing on whatever it is, that personal coach is reinforcing and supporting us all the way. 4 agreements, mindfulness. It's the journey. Ernest Holmes said, if the obstruction is the result of a hangover, of belief from past years, the practitioner, now by the way, he's not just talking about licensed practitioner, the practitioner of this philosophy, must know that no past mistake can hinder or obstruct the flow of divine science through God's idea. We must know that. We must know that the past is not a hindrance to the present or the future, unless I believe it so. Unless my personal coach says, you know what, you really can't do that because remember that one time you did that and I really don't think you should try that again. No past mistake can hinder or obstruct the flow of divine intelligence through God's idea, which is perfect human, manifesting the attributes of God in freedom, happiness, activity, and power, and that this truth is now manifest in life. What's in the way? Thank you. What's in the way? It's not us, by the way, because if we keep calling it us, then we're wrong. It's the belief. That goes for everyone else that we're thinking is wrong. It's just the belief. It's just the story. Can we have compassion? Can we be adaptable and open through this process of self and community? Ernest talks about one that receives prayer to be receptive. If you receive prayer, to be receptive, not to the will of the practitioner, not to the will of the practitioner, but to the purpose of the universe. The universe, the practitioner is speaking and immersed in prayer with the idea of changing the mindset of how I see you. You've asked me to see you this way. Now I'm going to hold in prayer that idea, and I will see it for you. And my practice is to see that for you, for me. Because if I can see that for you, until you do, is the power. And when you do, we are one. The study of first cause, spirit, truth, that invisible presence, that ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of creation, the thing itself is what we study. Again, we study first cause. What is first cause? What I think. What I think is first cause. What I think about a situation is first cause. So if we want our lives to change, if we want to come together and adapt and continue to create something that is powerful, that is inclusive, where we practice extraordinary respect, safety, accountability, and compassion, it starts here. Which is, the practice is here. By the way, the heart already knows. We just practice it up here. And opportunity is always met with preparation, and what we're doing now is the practice of it. When we take classes, when we do mindfulness, when we join in meditation, when we use a practitioner instead of trying to do it on our own. I'm a fan of doing it on my own, and I am not good at doing it on my own. In fact, I'm terrible at it. In fact, I fail at it. In fact, I'm miserable in it when I do it on my own. And as we come together, it's not in our equipment. It's not what we drive. It's not our house. It's not the building. It's not the chairs. It's not in things. It's our awareness of how we can be and who we truly are. We move away from the fear of appearing too weak or not enough. We move away from it. So when it's happening and when I feel that, we move away from that. How do we move away from that? Rachel, I need prayer. I call my mentor. I call my coach. I take it into and put it on the altar so that it doesn't live within me. For the longer it lives within me, the more it takes on residence, and the more it becomes part of my practice. There was a social experiment by the Washington Post, and they put a man with a violin playing Bach for 45 minutes in a Washington, D.C. metro station. During that time, approximately 2,000 people went through the station. During that 45 minutes, 2,000 people. Most of them on their way to work. Of all that passed through, 6 people stopped to listen. And for a short time, of course, they're on their way to work. No one knew this, but the violinist was the renowned Joshua Bell, child prodigy, considered one of the most amazing violinists in the world. No one knew this. Because what we often do, so think about it, for those of you that are retired, think about when you were on your way to work. For those of you that are not retired, think about when you're on your way to something. And how we get lost in thought on the way to everything. That we miss because we aren't practicing mindfulness. We miss so much. And the only thing that we grab onto are the things that we focus on. So just take for a moment and look at your day yesterday. What were you focused on? And by the way, don't let your personal coach, who's mean and nasty, be the one that analyzes it. Yeah, you know who it is. The point of it is that we miss so much. And the way through this, the way to where we're going, isn't about the destiny, because the destiny is not important. But what if on the way to the destiny, whether it's work or something, what if I was mindful? What if I actually explored my own values around my own personal values? Besides, when we're in community, what if my focus was our community values? How would I be? How would I show up? How would I operate? And if I operated from the values that we've identified, which is extraordinary respect, compassion, safety, and accountability, if those are the values that I operate from, what would I create? What if I was mindful? Because being mindful is the only way, which is to clear out all that's in the way and to be open to that divine voice, that divine intuition that speaks to all of us. But if I'm too busy complaining about the driver in front of me, waiting in line, and it's so long, and it's frustrating, I'm missing some beautiful moments to pause and to note, how am I? Who am I? What am I? How can I be in this moment? The world is in a state of agitation. So am I bringing more agitation into the world? Am I bringing more judgment into the world? Am I bringing more frustration into the world? Am I expecting everyone to change so that I'm not so frustrated? We get to decide what that looks like for ourselves. Yes, the journey starts with me, but the journey is with you. And how I show up matters. It doesn't matter what role it is, whether it's sweeping the floor, doing the sound, singing the beautiful music, being the welcoming host, the practitioner, the board member, the congregant. Whatever those feelings are that I'm feeling, if they're not wholeness and joy, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It's just something to look at. It's just something to examine. Because this is the truth, that no one and nothing is against me. Let us go into prayer. So I just anchor in this moment, recognizing that oneness. It has been spoken of already in the joy of the moment of being here in community. I anchor in to that recognition. I feel it in my heart. I feel it resonating throughout my body. And I know this for myself and for each person in this room because we are one with it. The thing itself. We call it many names: God, Spirit, consciousness. Each individual has its own, in this room, has their own belief and feeling about it. But anchoring into that oneness right here and right now, what I declare for this time as this community and each person in it, whether they're in this room or online, whether they've been part of it or about to be part of it, I anchor in how I am to be. My purpose of being compassionate and loving and grace-filled. Where the world that I live in is no one or nothing is against me. That's the world I live in. No matter what is going on the outside, this is what's true. Conditions are not the essence. It's how I show up. And I accept that for myself. I accept that for this community. Anchoring in and knowing that each person in this room is a divine gift to the universe. Beautiful, beloved gifts that are part of and innate to each person. Accepting that in gratitude and in gratefulness. I accept this prayer as done in the mind of God. And so it is. Thank you.